Yes, sir. How about you?
Very nice. I do mind. I got dressed. Well, special. You guys let me know.
You like that?
I don't know what it's down
Hey, all right, all right. So you're saying, yeah, I don't know how to do it, but when I get to work, but what are you trying to get all the way out? You just do it by yourself. Oh, what? It is, but I'm really. No, in fact, I'll make a call today. I want to get somebody to show me how to get stuff, so I can start doing that. But I don't know how to do it yet.
Well, no, you know.
Okay, start this meeting right here. I'll come back there. Okay,
Yeah, there's When you said his name, I knew exactly who you were.
Everything he sees.
I just got to big glass of Pass out. And I had But he's got something to say about it. Yes, there is. Anyway. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
I'd like to call order the special call meeting for the city of Rocky Mount to discuss our budget needs as it relates to our financial challenges. This is a meeting that will not have any public comment to it. Public comment is welcome on Monday night during our schedule. During the period of time, we will consider all options as it relates to our budget items. Everything from revenues to expense cuts. Our professional staff has made a couple of recommendations, and we will be hearing from our city manager and his team as it relates to those particular matters. The council will then consider whether or not we want to vote on a challenge an act today, or if we're going to defer that until Monday. I'm going to ask that everybody please maintain decorum in the council chambers as we go through this meeting. With that, I'm going to turn the meeting over. I'm going to ask actually the city clerk if she'll please call the roll.
Councilmember Knight,
Here.
Blackwell,
Here.
Robertson,
Here.
TJ Walker,
Here.
Donaldson,
Here.
Harris,
Here.
Javaris Walker.
Here.
Okay, we have a forum at that time. What I'll do is I'll ask Mr. Manager if you'll take us down the road of a journey that you've prepared for us.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, everyone. First, I want to thank my staff and council for guidance, and then staff for input. Again, this is truly a team effort. We've been meeting this week and last week and having late nights and staying at City Hall at all hours trying to get this done. So I just want to thank you all for all of your hard work and helping us put this together. We're going to start off with our utilities because as it's been noted in the public releases that we are considering adjusting our rates across the board, across all utilities. And so to lead us off, we'll have Mr. Bradley Walters, our Energy Research Director.
Thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
Can assure you my presentation today will be a little quicker than it was last week. But if you remember last week, we talked about the ongoing electric cost of service study. We were able to complete that over the last 7 days. And I've got a formal recommendation for each of you today. So this kind of will show our agenda for this particular part of the presentation. And so we're going to go straight to our rate class margins. So when we do electric cost of service study or gas cost of service study, one of the things that we look at heavily are how each rate class is affected, whether they are over or under recovering based on what it costs to serve them energy, in this case, electricity. So what we have here is in our fiscal year 27 current margins, the difference between what we bring in from that rate class in revenue versus what it costs to serve that rate class. So you'll see here in our fiscal year 27 current margins that that's what the rates recover or under recover today as it stands, the rates that were implemented July 1st of last year. And you'll see that those numbers in the red means that that particular rate class is under recovering what it costs to serve them. And those that are in the black are over recovering what it costs to serve that class. Our recommendation today will shift to the second column, actually the third column. And you'll see that there's not a single class that changes from a under recovery to an over recovery or vice versa. But what we try to do is to make that a little more equitable across the board of all rate classes. Essentially, if a rate class is over recovering, they are subsidizing a rate class that is under recovery. And so we try to balance that out. And so you'll see here that there are some changes as far as how this rate path will provide a path forward. There are changes there where we're moving that back towards a more balanced approach. Next page is our electric projected revenues. And so you'll see that with our current revenues, with current rates again that were implemented on July 1st of last year, each rate class has the revenue that we expect to receive from that rate class totaling almost $85 million. That's what our revenues recover as it is today. The rate path that we're proposing to move forward with will recover almost $92 million. And so this is an 8% increase across the board. So an 8% increase, electric rate increase is what we're looking at collectively across the utility system. This will get us an additional $6.8 million. Now, the reasoning for this additional revenue, the need for this additional revenue is for the replenishment of our currently zero fund balance and to also offset the NCEMPA wholesale rate increase of 4.5% that is going across all NCEMPA members effective April 1st. So our proposed rate class increases based on the slide a few slides ago and where we stand as far as what over recovers and under recovers. These are the percentages that we're going to proposing to implement across each rate class to make sure that we can recover those funds that we mentioned in the previous slide, almost $100 million.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Walters, with the proposed rate increases throughout, it's obvious that the small general service, basically everyone besides residential, it has a lower increase. And there was an increase back in July that, if I remember correctly, did not hit the residential service, or if it did, it was smaller. Is that accurate?
Yes, the rate increase that was implemented last year was heavily balanced, more heavily balanced toward the large industrial class and the large general services classes.
And you don't recall the percentages, do you?
Not right off. You can see basically off that first page, those current margins.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Question. So the 4% rate increase that you implemented in July, are you saying that did not hit the residential?
So the 4%, no, it did. It was 4% in July of last year. It was a higher percentage on the commercial class and industrial class last year.
What was the percentage on the residential?
It was 4%.
4%. And also in addition to that 4%, you had a PPA up there, correct? 0.008. Is that additional, can you say 6%?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about the PPA in a minute, but yes, the PPA was implemented October 1st. That was the reasoning for the PPA was to recover the true up that we had to pay last year. It was originally scheduled to be paid out of rate stabilization, but there were no funds available to pay it out of rate stabilization. So that PPA was implemented last year, October 1st. That PPA was implemented equally across the board in terms of price per kilowatt hour. But that affected rate class is different. The 0.8 cent kilowatt hour charge of the PPA impacted our large industrials up between 12 and 15%, whereas it affected our residential class between 6 and 7%.
So is it safe to say that in 25 residential received about a 10%, 10-11% rate increase?
Including the base rate and also the PPA, which will come off in July, at the end of June.
So residential got nearly a 10% rate increase.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I recognize you, Councilman Knight.
Yes, is it true to say that until last year, that we had a rate increase until June of 2025?
Yes, sir. July 1st of 2025 was the first electric rate increase since 2012.
2012.
That's right. There was a rate change, which was a slight reduction in 15 due to the asset sale, and another slight reduction in 2017.
Now, but during that time, when after 2017 up until 2025, anytime it was a wholesale rate increase, we would absorb that rate.
We were able to absorb that rate due to the establishment of the rate stabilization fund.
So that means from 2012 up into 2025, there was no rate increase passed to our residential customers.
That's correct.
And is it true to say, I know this is before your time, we were struggling with this huge debt, which was to be paid off in 2026, until Duke bought us out of our percentage. That when the large textiles industry left Rocky Mount, Burlington, Slayers Lodge, other textile businesses, that debt was heavily on residential customers to carry that debt until the sale assets to do.
That was before my time, but from the records that I reviewed, Pat, from the point, that you were correct.
So, I'm saying that to say this, that you just stated that, in July, the increase was more heavily balanced on the commercial businesses. And what I'm trying to bring a historic perspective to our citizens, prior to July of 2025, when we had this huge debt. I forgot how much was the debt before, how much? $500 million. That was the debt for Rocky Mount. It's 3 cities that has the largest percentage. That's Greenville, Wilson, and Rocky Mount. And when NAFTA came and all of these textiles industry left Rocky Mount, and some of us know that, because our parents worked there and some of you worked there, that burden shifted to our residential customers. And that was the fight during that time to lower our utility rates for our citizens, because the burden that they carry on their back. And up until July, that's when we start seeing the shift. But now today, we're trying to even that out with residential and commercial, to have it even across the board, where the burden is shared by all of us.
Correct. In a perfect model scenario, everything's zero, but
Thank
that's not practical.
Right, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, sir, Councilman Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Walters, I'm going to go back to a statement you said a little earlier. Last year, when we realized there was no funds available and the rate stabilization fund was zero, the PPA had to be initiated. And you also said that it's going to be rolling off this year. Is that correct?
Yes, if you let me skip ahead, so I'll go ahead.
But I just want to emphasize this point.
Right.
If they were fine and that roll off occurs, then the net effect to the residents would be just a 4% increase. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you look at the budget that was approved and put before for fiscal year 26 last year, it was a $3.8 million rate stay appropriation that was supposed to come out to pay for that true up. And that true up, obviously the rate stabilization was not there. So we have to,
So that 6 to 7% increase is rolling off, correct?
it is rolling off effective June 30th.
Thank you so much, and I hope our citizens keep that in mind as we further discuss today and Monday what we need to do.
Could you explain the true up for those who don't know what the true up is?
Absolutely. So Duke Duke gives NAKEMPA an idea of operating costs each year and the revenues that are going to be projected for that. And each system pays a proportion based off the size of its system in comparison to the 32-member agency. And what happens is if Duke's expenses to provide power to the NAKEMPA agency exceed what their revenues, they give the NAKEMPA agency a true up. That true up is an additional cost that our membership has to pay. It is proportionally based on the amount of power we use across the agency. So that is a increase in Duke cost that they pass through to NAKEMPA, which is then passed to us. So that true up is what we call it, and it's every year.
All right, thank you.
So again, across the system, 8% increase. We see how it's going to affect each particular rate class here. But what does that look like for a typical residential customer? So this comparison that we have here in the blue column shows our current rate path, what we have approved, what we're utilizing today on a customer that uses 1,000 kilowatt hours in a month. They can expect to pay $128 approximately per month. Now, this does not include load management because I wanted to make sure we were comparing apples to apples. So we have additional load management credits that can help lower that, but the majority of our customers do not utilize load management credits. So I wanted to make sure that we see this as it is, $128 a month with our current rates. With this proposed rate increase to the residential class, that total bill goes up approximately 14.75% to $146.90. So this is about an $18 or $19 increase per month that our customers can expect to pay and with this proposed rate increase.
Yes, sir. Councilman Blackwell.
Thank you. How did you come up with 14.75%?
So going back to the cost margins, when we're looking at the cost margin, you see that currently our rates under recover the residential class by $11.2 million. And so when you're looking at making that balanced across all rate classes, you kind of see what that percentage needs to be. This particular percentage lowers the margin, the negative margin, to 5.3 million for the residential class. Now, to make that zero, and again, to match that into a perfect zero model, which is not practical, that would include probably a 30+% rate increase. That's obviously too heavy for our customer base to bear, especially at work. And so one of the things that we look at in the cost of service is where we can try to balance it out, take a step in a positive direction that we know it's going to take time to get that balance over time, but to do it in such a way that's digestible for all rate classes. And so when we were doing our cost of service study, what we came up with was this particular rate path.
Councilman Robinson.
When you're talking about your cost of service, can we break down some of those expenditures? Specifically, I want to talk about the administration charge. Could you give us the audience and everyone up here, what are those administration charges and how do they break down?
So specifically, when we're looking at operating budget, a total budget, and to try to determine what amount of revenue we need, we look at four major pieces of our operation. The obvious one is the wholesale cost of energy. All right, that totals about 56 million a year. So of that 91 million that we're proposing to recover, over half of that is the actual power cost. We also have capital outlay that we're projected to be between 7 and 7.5 million a year. That's what our 5-year average is.
Explain what capital is.
Capital is what we spend to replace our substations. We have 12 substations. The equipment that needs to be replaced, it's part of a multi-year project. When we renew our substations, the transformers can be very expensive. Substation upfit would cost between $7 and $8 million generally, and that's only going to go up. And so anything that we spend to actually stabilize and increase our system capacity potential is considered a capital outlay. And so we have to replace those things. So about 7 to 7.5 million of our operating cost is for capital outlay. And this in particular, what we're asking for in this rate, we're also looking for $5 million to help replenish the fund balance because we're down to zero. So an electric utility that has zero money in savings sees a huge risk. There's a huge risk to us. And so we have a plan to establish that back to a 90-day operating fund over the next 4 years. And so that's $5 million.
Why is lack of fund balance risky?
If we have $0 and we're not in a position to finance these large assets, these capital outlay, and we have a failure at a substation, then we have to pay for that in cash. If we do not have the cash and the revenues don't recover the cash that we need to pay for it, then that service does not get maintained. The quality of service that we've always been able to provide will not continue to be the same.
So in other words, if there's an ice storm, if there's a hurricane, if something takes out a piece of equipment, which we do not manufacture in Rocky Mount, which has to be purchased from the open market, which is now subject to international tariffs and global blowback from national policy. We have to pay for that from somewhere. How often in Rocky Mountain, when power goes off, how long does it take to get reconnected?
Less than an hour, out on average.
How does that average out with people who are not in Rocky Mountain territories?
It's much quicker, much quicker.
Anyone else? You know what, can we maybe get through the presentation and then let's drill down? I know that a lot of these answers are in the material.
Sure.
And, but I think it's important that we almost over-explain to everybody, including me.
Sure, sure.
So that we understand.
So we just looked at the comparison of what our current rate is and what the proposed rate path would be and what that looks like for a typical residential customer. Now I want to show how that compares to our investor-owned and local co-ops. So you'll see here, you'll see a column for Duke Energy, you'll see Dominion, Hitchcock Martin, and Halifax. Their average cost, even with this increase that we're proposing, we will still be less than 3 of those 4, Dominion being the only one. Now, these utilities are also looking at their own internal increases. I don't know what they are, but these numbers will not stay the same that we're comparing to. But this is what our cost would be at approximately $147 a month, and you see that we're below 3 of the 4. To do a little more closer comparison to our NCEMPA peers, again, remembering that the 4.5% that NCEMPA is passing on to us is buried by all 32 members of NCEMPA. These are our closest NCEMPA members here at City of Wilson, Town of Tarboro, and Greenwood Utilities Commission. And you can see that what I've included here is our load management, because each of these systems also provide load management. So we're again comparing oranges to oranges on this case, that their load management credits are included and so are ours. So you'll see here that we are, and again, they are looking at a 4.5% increase effective April 1st too. These are their current rates as of March. I don't know what their plans are to move forward, but they will change as well because they're incurring the same wholesale increase that we are. But this kind of gives you an idea of where we're at when we compare all of those factors.
All right, I know I said, let's get to the presentation, but I have a question. That's a proposed rate. That is showing our increase 128.40. What is that number today?
So that number today, without it, so that number today is 128. It's 128. The proposed increase that I'm showing here is with $18.75 worth of load management credits.
So
it's
subtract
$140.
$18 from that to come up.
You add $18 to that to make that 146.
So roughly $110 a month.
No, you would have to add $18 to
Okay,
the,
plus.
but in comparison, we would also have to add back their load management credits for each of those systems as well.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Mayor, since you,
Yeah, I know.
I know, I want to emphasize what Mr. Walters is saying here in his previous slide and this current slide. In the news, Duke has been talking about a 10.5% increase that they're going to FERC for their residential customers over beyond what they currently charge their residential customers. I do know in the news recently, I know Kinston has gone up. I'm not sure the exact amount, but I remember seeing it recently. But each one of these utilities is having to increase. And some of the information, or obviously, we've all been contacted by the public, and I appreciate the contacts. And I just want to make it clear that we're going up on this mainly because we're not covering our costs to operate the system. And I know you're going to emphasize that, Mr. Walters, but it's important to know that we have to operate the system because not only are, the lights that we have on now and the HVAC, but we got to remember the hospital, UNC Nash, we supply them with electricity, and as well as Boyce Willis, all the other large companies in this area. So we need to be aware of that. And we have not been covering our cost to operate this system. And it's like anybody, you have to cover your cost. We just have to, and unfortunately, the timing of this is just awful. And but I want to emphasize that these folks here, these are the rates as of today, And after the day, or more than likely, when their budgets go into effect, July 1, they're gonna have higher rates, I would imagine, which, and that's just a, because they're experiencing the same thing.
They're experiencing the same wholesale cost increase that we are.
Okay, I'm sorry to do that, but I just wanted to
No,
be clear about that. Thank
That
you.
was kind of where I was trying to get a point of clarity as well, so I think you helped me. Councilman Robertson, you'd like
Yes,
to
I'll get a
recognize.
point, because, I appreciate Councilman, Dorches and all the work that you've been doing, and what's the reason we're not recovering our costs? And I know you've been asking these questions for a long time regarding administration charges and those fees. And I think you was the one that said it went up 270%, is that correct?
200. I don't have my spreadsheet in front of me, but since 2013, it's gone up 256%, I believe. Actually, I've got it right here, 260%. But that's a separate issue from what the question I just had.
Yeah, well, my issue is that why aren't we recovering our costs and our expenses to rate and that administration fee? I think it was $34.2 million this year that you have to pay in administration charges, and we
No,
didn't administration costs that was transferred.
That's the entire enterprise system pays that, not just electric. Bradley would have to, Mr. Walters would have to explain that just for electric. I don't have that in mind.
Well, not just for
So
electric.
we're deviating here.
No, I'm just saying,
I'm
I just
sorry,
want.
sir, Councilman. We're deviating here. Can we just finish the presentation? And you are the first person I'm going to recognize,
Thank you,
Councilman Robertson.
appreciate it.
Okay, so this is how we compare to our NICIPA members. So we're right in line with where they're gonna be. We expect them to go up some. I don't know what they're gonna propose to their boards on their rate increase, but they are experiencing the same wholesale increase that we are experiencing effective April 1st. Last piece to the electric side. Again, you mentioned the PPA earlier. The PPA has been in place. It's been a mechanism that we have had in place for a while. This past year is the first year we've used it. And essentially what it was is, again, we had this true up cost that we were planning to pull out of our rate stabilization fund. We realized that was zero balance there. We had to implement a PPA across the board. The way this PPA was implemented, it was effective to October 1st. It was approved to go through June 30th. And the revenue received from that increase in PPA was enough exactly to cover the true up that we had paid this year as part of our NICIPA contract. That PPA was 0.8 cents per kilowatt hour across all rate classes. And again, that did affect rate classes differently. So that PPA will roll off June 30th. And effective July 1st, we have a new true up rider 25. Rider 125 is $1.8 million. Okay, so it's less than what our true up was for this current fiscal year. So next year's true up is $1.8 million. We'll collect that as part of a PPA because it is a temporary charge. And so we want to make sure it's a temporary mechanism in our rates. We don't want to bake that additional 1.8 million into our rates when it's going to fall off possibly the next year. So the way we have this set up is that effective July 1st and through the entirety of fiscal year 27, to recover the $1.8 million, which is the remainder of Rider 123 and 9 months of Rider 125, it's going to be a 0.3 cent kilowatt hour charge for non-demand customers and a little less than 0.2 cent for our demand customers. Demand customers being our large industrials. So that it balances that burden of the PPA a little more evenly across all rate classes.
Okay, so we're done with the electric.
The electric.
So I'd like to recognize you, Councilman Robertson. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Across the enterprise funds, we was talking about the administration costs, right? I don't think you fully understand what that is, and would love for you if you could, break down exactly how the administration is charged for each enterprise fund, are calculated, and what specific services are you paying for those, do those charges represent?
Sure, I understand exactly what it is. What it is we in utilities do not have an HR department. We don't have an IT department. We don't have our own purchasing department. We utilize the city departments of those types of things for those types of office and administrative services. Because of that, we have to pay for those services. We reimburse the city for the use of those services. So there should be a cost allocation model that states we're using X amount of each department and we pay that amount. And so that's what that admin service charge is created for. There's also the interfund transfer. Interfund transfer is dictated by state statute that it can be a certain percentage. For a public utility, they can transfer a certain percentage to the general fund, to the municipality, based on a formula. That's also included. So when I mentioned earlier, the four big parts of our operating system, you've got wholesale energy purchasing. We've got our actual capital outlay for our capital projects, our big fixed asset projects. We have our operating cost, what it takes to actually run the utility, paying our linemen, paying our gas workers, maintaining the system, meeting compliance regulations. And then we have what we pay as a transfer to the city. And that's again for use of services that we do not have in energy resources.
And I'll just add one thing to that, slight adjustment in terminology. Instead of city, they are part of the city, just transfer it to the general fund.
Yeah, and I'll recognize your Councilman Knight, but, so when you're talking about the lineman, you're talking about the cost of utilities, what you're talking about is the cost of goods sold, basically, in a general vernacular. And it doesn't include the overhead expenditures that would be dropped down into the form of the, administrative fee. So it's still cost, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so
It's a separate component. One is a gross margin, contribution margin line in a vernacular that I'm more accustomed to. But I just want to clarify that.
Yes, so the admin service charge and the transfer are considered to be part of our operating budget, which covers basically everything it takes to operate the system.
But there's still costs associated with the utilities in
Yes.
the form of purchasing department, accounting, and whatever else the allocation looks like.
And that's what that general, that admin service charge goes to, the general fund to reimburse them for the services that we use of this general fund staff.
Got it. Thank you. Councilman Knight, I'm sorry.
And that's just the cost of doing business, because if we compare ourselves to Greenville, which they're part of the Kemper consortium, I think they're the largest percentage than Wilson, Rocky Mountain. Then those, where you talked about the transfer, the administrative fees, because you don't have HR, so forth and so on. Greenville Utilities, what they call it, Greenville Utility
Commission.
The commission. They would handle all of that in-house, and their board, they don't see this on the Greenville side. They're doing that because they got the utilities commission, right?
They are a standalone entity.
Right.
And they provide some funding to the city of Greenville, but it's by way of it's more of like payment in lieu of taxes and those sorts of things. It's not for services that they're paying for from city of Greenville employees. So they have their stuff internally to the commission.
Right, so that's the various difference there.
That's the difference between Greenville Utilities Commission and say us and the city of Wilson.
Right.
So us and the city of Wilson, our utilities are under the municipal umbrella. So again, the services that we use from the general fund, we pay and reimburse by means of the admin service charge.
Councilman Robertson.
So those charges, we're more comparable with Wilson, correct?
That's right. set
And
up.
Wilson paid this admin service charge as well, right?
They do.
I'm pretty sure you know the industry and the market. What is Wilson paying for that admin service charge compared to us?
I've not looked at their recent budget to determine what amount they could contribute across all of their utilities. And it's going to depend on what their cost allocation model is.
So do you feel that you're paying your fair share of administration, service charge, or are you paying, more unrelated, to what you're using? Now, I know it's 32.4 million, right? This year, enterprise funds that you paid out, administration service charge. Some of those service charges, you say you're paying for what you use of the HR department and these different departments. But when I added it up, the 32.4 million is actually paying for the whole operation of some of these departments. So are you paying your fair share of those administration service charge?
I think
So-
that question would be better asked to our finance director because it's an allocation of central office overhead as it relates to it, and it's divided by some sort of unit of measure, whether it's kilowatts or whatever. And I think that, you know, what we're hearing today is what you know to be the cost associated with it. So I think if we can defer that question to a much later time, I think that would be a more appropriate time to do.
We are provided, just to let you know where it comes from the utility side, we are provided a number as part of the budget, which is what we have to account for when we set our rates. So I don't see that we provided a number.
And what I'm uncomfortable with is, you know, do you think you're paying your fair share or not? I mean, I think that's something that really, I mean, it's a non-controllable, Bradley, I think.
From the utility side, we provided a number, and that's what we have to make sure we.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir, Councilman Donaldson.
this is a great question about the utility service fee, admin service fee, and everyone knows that I've been questioning this for years. I think in the situation that we're in right now, because it, you know, I've kept track with it since 2014. And it is a concern not only to council members, but I think also the public. But I think what we need to do is move on from where we are right now, but I would request, Mr. Manager, that we get a detailed accounting for how it's calculated. And essentially, you know, it piggybacks on what I've asked previously. The formula, there's got to be a formula there and make sure it's consistency so we can understand. And I don't think, honestly, it's fair to ask Mr. Walters if he thinks it's fair or not, because he's just presented by management, I guess the city manager, of what his allocation of the admin service fee, because it's not only, it falls under, the total amount's 34 million and change, but it falls under the electric and water and sewer and the rest of the enterprise fund. So I think it's better suited for the city manager to answer that question, but it sounds like, and I appreciate the question. So Mr. Manager, can you get back to us maybe during the budget portion with the formula so we can understand it as a city council and as the public?
Yes, sir. If that is the direction from the council as a whole, staff will do our best to try to provide that information. And I'd also like to add that part of what we're trying to do for the overall budget, not just with the enterprise funds, but with the general fund as well, is to examine our entire financial position to get to where we are, reducing our overall costs across the board with regard to adjustments in personnel costs, salary, benefits, operational costs. So if we lower that cost down, then that allocation could have the potential to go down. But part of the reason of why we're in the financial position currently is because personnel costs, operational costs has increased over the last several years, and we have not kept pace.
Mr. Mayor.
If I may, is that satisfactory, Councilman Robertson? I mean,
No, I just wanted, because I would love for this council to ask the manager with me, because I asked for an itemized breakdown of those administration service charges, so we can see exactly what we're paying for, because that's a huge part of your expenses. So if we can see an itemized breakdown of what those service administration charges are going to pay, then we would I want to have to ask those questions, and if it's fair, because us as a council can see exactly what he's paying for.
well, I think we just asked the manager to produce those costs, and so they'll be.
Itemized breakdown
That's
of what we're paying for.
at least what the allocation represents in terms of cost and what the denominator and the numerator are relative to the calculation. I'll recognize you, Councilman Blackwell.
Thank you. I'm not defending or supporting anything but basic knowledge about what it takes for us to run our business, not just as a utility, but as a city. And I would like to remind everyone who's listening and all of us who are here that it's been the policy of many councils prior to us ever being set. City used utilities, electric and gas, to fund city operations as opposed to tax increases. That was the policy before we ever got here. And if you want to know how we built this system that was built when I came here in 2000, the philosophy behind it was use utility costs to keep taxes low. And we argued about that for years. So when we're examining whatever it is we're gonna be looking at, it's an entire city economy that we have to examine. We can pick apart if we want to about paying a bill here. You don't pay a bill here, you're gonna pick up for it later. The bottom line is that what is it gonna cost to run a city the size of Rocky Mount? Where do we get the money from? And what services do we provide? These are components of a whole picture. And if you don't like the component, we have to change the whole picture. And if we can change the picture, then we can talk about what it is. But I do want to emphasize that you said one thing. You mentioned when Councilman Robertson asked you about the costs related to energy provision. And you said 55 million was the cost of wholesale energy.
Right.
And then you said 77 million. Is that, did I hear that correct?
77 for what?
For the capital investment?
About between 7 and 7.5
Okay,
million.
I thought I heard 77.
No, not that much. Yeah,
Right.
7 million for capital investment.
That's what I wanted to hear. What's the percentage of the whole? In
Right.
these components, which I think Councilman Robertson asked, and which we'll all get later on. So what is it that we can control here? And I think that's what our question is. I think that's the intention of everybody here. What can we control here?
Right. So as from a utility standpoint, we can't control the energy costs. We have to account for that. We can control our capital outlay and our operating costs to some degree. We have to maintain a certain quality of service and level of assurance on the system. You know, money has to be spent on it. And so we know what those are. And then there are numbers provided by the budget office as far as what our portion of what you're saying goes to. And so what we did when we came up with this cost of service study, come up with this rate proposal, is we kept those charges, we reduced those charges anywhere we could to try to offset the burden of an increase. So we have cut some expenditures operationally, cut some expenditures from the capital side. And we've kept the particular transfer at a same level as what it was last year, so that we could accommodate and actually calculate what our rates need to be to cover our revenue. Because again, as a utility, we're a nonprofit utility. I hate to say it as a nonprofit, but we're not there to make more than what it costs to serve our customers. It's one of the benefits of public power is that we can provide a true cost of service to all rate classes, to what it costs. And if we can do it that way without any type of motive to make more, then what that does is that benefits all of our customers across all classes when you compare them to, say, an investor-owned utility like Duke.
Yes, Councilman Knight, recognize.
And we all have to be mindful that this whole fight across North Carolina with Duke, when you look at what their profit is, they're not a nonprofit, they're a for-profit. And their stakeholders, they get, I think, I forgot what the profit is. That goes back to those who own the company. And so that's the difference here. Even the money that if we make money off utility, it still goes back into not our shareholders, but into projects and other things that provide for our citizens and other amenities. And so if you carefully read this whole utility piece about Duke, you can see what their shareholders are making. They are making profits. From what we do, if we make a profit, we invest it back into our citizens and community with projects.
Yes, sir, Councilman TJ Wall.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Brandon, for the presentation thus far. I just want to piggyback off the last comment. I think that Councilmember Robertson made as it related to admin charges and appropriations. And I know our deliberation started to head towards holding off on information, but with a situation so sensitive and the timing of it, I would ask that we don't hold off on any information. I've been on this board since 2019, and I've seen us in situations that have been less dire and have demanded of staff to do and to find and to bring. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you called on our finance director to answer the question, but Mr. Manager, he knows his staff and who knows information and who is competent to answer. So if there's anything that we need answered today, especially with the public being here, with this meeting not being a meeting where the public has public input, which that'll be Monday, but a meeting where the public is here for such a sensitive topic. Any question that can be answered today needs to be answered today. We don't need to wait. And I think Councilman Daughtry said about fairness. Well, we could play with that word a lot of ways, but I don't want us to overlook getting these answers today. If the answer.
Thank you. Councilman Thurston, you had your mic on that you wanted to recognize.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and Mr. Walters, thank you. As a reminder, a large part of what the city provides, all the enterprise funds, is business services. That's a large staff, and only a small amount of time each year is devoted to property tax collection. So let's just keep in mind, there are a lot of services the city admin department does for the enterprise fund. What I want to say is, and I want to be careful and say this. Last June, in the budget session, a discussion was made of 4 cents increase in property tax, $2.4 million. I've been advocating for quite some time. In June of last year, I said, let's not go up on property tax. Let's cut. If we can just cut 1%, that would be more than offset the $2.4 million, because the budget that we were given at that time was $279 million. As council, revenue is only one part of the equation. There's going to be some cost reductions that are going to be happening between now and June 30. And there's going to be some others proposed between July 1 and December 30. But the council has control of the money. I had discussions with the manager about a more detailed breakdown of all expenses. Just last week, I asked for a detail of the breakdown of the $3.8 million in the outside audit report for the event center. I don't know what they are. So all I'm saying is we're going to be working hard late at night over the next 3 months as we really scrutinize what we plan to do with some cost reductions now. But it's going to be incumbent upon all 7 of us. I've been asking for cost decreases. Now we're at the cliff. It was so reminded to us point blank last week. And right now the car is being blocked by a barrier. If we don't cut expenses, and we still got to monitor ways for improvement, along with some revenue increases, do not want the LTC to come in. None of us do. But if they do, there's going to be worse decisions that are going to have to be made. So there's a plenty upon us as a council to go and find where we can save money, and we've got to raise some revenue, and I hate that. Personally, I hate it. I've been in that way since September 1 2025, when we were told about our cash position, I have been appalled, been sick. But I'm a fighter and I'm gonna work with everybody along with the guidance of our new finance director, along with the guidance of the LGC and the North Carolina League. We are going to get there. But we have got to look at both sides of the balance sheet and the P&L. And I thank you for what you do.
Okay, Mr. Walters, if we can get you back on track.
Let me, I got a
Sir,
quick
Councilman Javaris Walters.
Mr. Brown, I probably should have asked this question last week. I seen in your presentation where you was looking at the small general services and the large general services. And I should have asked last week, the street light part of that, can you break that down, if you don't mind? I just can't really make it make sense. Can you break that down for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously, we supply power to our streetlights that light our city streets, our parks, our general communities. And so, some of those costs are from our public works department. Some of them are by us as the energy resources. But yes, we have to recover that rate. So in our rate cost of service study, we have a cost to provide that service. And then it has to be compensated for in revenues. And so that's what that is. So for example, what you're seeing here is an increase in our street light rate will offset a little bit back towards the mean of what they're under recovering. Right now, the streetlights are under recovering what it costs to have them on and be utilized by our community.
Just a clarification.
Yes, sir.
Councilman TJ Walters, when I spoke about fairness, I was talking about fairness to Bradley up here, because he doesn't know how the admin service fee is calculated. It is provided to him via, I don't know whether it's budget finance to Elton, who then tells him what it is. I said out of fairness to him, I don't think we should ask him to explain how it's calculated, because frankly, I'm not so sure he knows. It's just provided to him. So when I was speaking about fairness, that's what I was talking about.
Okay, Mr. Walters, let's get you at least through gas. How about that?
Gas is quick. So essentially, obviously we're coming into the summer months, very low volumes of gas being used. Most of our system is a winter peak system for heat loads. And so we've got a 20-cent PGA in currently. So if you look at this chart here, we've got two different rates. We have a rate, and it's really not a difference in our rate. We have a facilities charge from April through October of $14. We have a facility charge of $34 November through March. You'll see here that a $20 increase equates to about a 20-cent PGA, which is what we have in now. So currently what we have in place, and again, is to recover costs of purchasing wholesale gas on the market, which is a fluctuating commodity, to make sure we cover our expenses there. We are proposing that as of April 1st through the end of June, we increased that 20 cent to 35 cent to cover the additional cost of the polar vortex that we were in the cold weather that we experienced in late January and early February. Again, our entire winter is about 20% colder than our 5-year average this past year. So it's been a tough winter in regards to that. And so that obviously affected the market in a negative way for us. And so this PGA that gets put in place is simply to recover our wholesale natural gas costs that by the end of June for this fiscal year. And so the proposal here is to increase that from 20 cent to 35 cent. And that's going to be an additional average of $15 a month for the average customer. But again, our natural gas usage during April, May, and June is significantly less, so it would not probably equate to that. And then this is, with that PGA in place, this is a comparison of how we stack up to our nearest natural gas systems, which is the Greenville Utilities Commission, City of Wilson, and Piedmont Natural Gas. And you can see that even with the 35 cent PGA in place, we are still significantly lower than all three of our peers.
Anybody have any questions as it relates to the gas?
Thank you, Bradley, for that presentation. Next, we're gonna have, Mr. Brenton Bent. He's gonna go over our, water and sewer utility.
Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, Manager Daniels, staff members, citizens of Rocky Mount, good morning. My name is Brenton Bent, and I am very proud to serve the city as your Water Resources Director. At our manager's request, I am providing an overview of the proposed rate changes for water and sewer services. We will examine how this will affect households and the community to foster understanding and trust. My fellow directors will address stormwater and environmental services. Please bear in mind that these proposed rates are geared towards addressing the city's critical water and sewer infrastructure and general market increases in operational costs as chemicals and replacement parts. I am grateful to the City Council for their unwavering support over the years in addressing infrastructure needs for water resources as we seek to provide the level of service that our water and sewer customers have come to expect. Within the water system, we have different rates inside and outside customers for regular and irrigation services. We are proposing a 15% rate adjustment across all tiers, including our wholesale customers. Now, we do serve customers outside of the city limits of Rocky Mount, Nash County, Edgecombe County, Sharpsburg, Whitaker, and such. At our current rate, the projection for FY 27 is $14.1 million. With the proposed adjustment, we are looking at 16.3 million, a difference of a little over 2.1 million. On the source side, with a proposed 15% adjustment, we are looking at an additional 2.46 million in revenue. To get a little more granular, the current inside facility charge for water is $11.23. The proposed adjustment will bring that up to $12.91, a difference of $1.68. With the change in the unit charge of 35 cents, a customer who uses 3,000 gallons of water per month will see an increase of $3.08 on their water bill. Similarly, on the sewer side, a customer who generates 3,000 gallons of sewer will notice an increase of $3.83 per month on their sewer bill. We took the liberty of comparing our proposed adjustments in facility, unit, and customer charge for a typical 3,000 gallon user with some of our surrounding towns and cities. It is important to note that the adjustment to 23.51 cents would place the city above Roanoke Rapids and Tarboro, but well below Wilson, Nashville, and Goldsboro. This comparison helps reassure the community that our rate remains fair and competitive within the region, supporting trust and transparency. Before I take your questions, you may recall in October 2022, the Water Resources Department conducted a detailed cost of service rate analysis that clearly indicated the city's rate structure was grossly inadequate. Faced with aging infrastructure and rising operational costs, the City Council approved annual rate adjustments over 4 years as recommended in the study. These adjustments are vital to ensure we can continue to upgrade and maintain our water and sewer systems effectively, thereby inspiring confidence in our water quality and our commitment to infrastructure improvements. Honorable Council, we trust that you and our most valued water and sewer customers will recognize the importance of supporting water resources in maintaining our water and wastewater plants, sewer pump stations, and collection and distribution system. Thank you. Now I take your questions.
Any questions?
Yes, sir. Councilman Harris?
Just as an example, the last, I think it was main water line break, maybe occurred on Sunset Avenue. Do you recall that happened a year or so ago? I think it was water line and not sewer line.
Yes, sir. We have had several of those, especially during colder months when we have expansion and contraction of the soil and the pipes with limited flexibility tends to breathe.
Generally, what's the repair bill to recover a major water line break?
It definitely depends, but one that we recently had was in the region of $100,000 based on the size of the pipe.
So what we are trying to do as the city is do our darndest to keep up with surveying and looking at our water and sewer lines to be ahead of the game rather than to be behind the game. We can't prevent early break, but if we can continue some infrastructure improvements, then hopefully we can be as best as we can to prevent major costs down the road. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, sir. And I will add that on any given day that you walk around the city of Rocky Mount, you're actually walking on 6 million gallons of water beneath your feet in pipes. We have over 500 miles of water lines and over 425 miles of sewer lines. Some of these pipes are 60 years old. And so the importance of maintaining this system, it cannot be overemphasized. And hence the reason why when we seek these rate adjustments is not to create pain, but is to improve water quality and improve infrastructure so that we can continue to serve our citizens.
Yes, Councilman Dodgers, recognize you, then I'll recognize you.
Mr. Bennett, thank you for your presentation, and I just want to emphasize, and you mentioned it, and I'm thankful that you did, about the cost of service study that occurred, and the decision was to incrementally go up on the rates, and I think we're at a different point now. But also for transparency and for the public, because I know the public is certainly questioning what the city of Rocky Mount does, and rightfully so. And I appreciate that, but anyone can go to the UNC School of Government. They have it's called Environmental Finance Center, and you can pull up a dashboard, and you can go and compare Rocky Mount or any municipality or county that you want to that has a water system, and compare to any other municipality you want to. It's a little dated, it's about a year old information, but it gives a good insight about Rocky Mount's water system in addition to how we compare to our peer group. And it includes stuff as cost recovery and financial benchmarks. And, this is very important. Water is to the health and safety of our community. And I appreciate what you and your staff do. And so again, this is an impact. No one wants rates to increase, but it's the reality of operating a system, and whether it's the city of Rocky Mount or another entity, rates are changing. So I appreciate what you do. Thank you.
I recognize you, Councilman George Walker.
Thank you for your presentation. 2 questions. I know you said that we have outside customers that we do provide water to. Do you know how many other cities we provide, or how many other towns we provide water for?
Yes, sir. We are a supplier of water to Nash County, Edgecombe County, Sharpsburg, Whitakers, and Nashville. So yes, we have services for over 80,000 customers.
So my question is, I know when you're saying a 15% increase, would that go to those customers also?
Yes, sir. They're considered our wholesale customers, and we are also going to be making that adjustment to their rate.
Thank you.
Councilman Knight. Oh, sorry, Councilman Roberts.
Do you know what admin charge you're paying? I have currently it's around like 725,000. Does that sound right, or is it a little more than that?
All right. I'd rather defer that question to the finance team.
Okay. How about grants? Have you leveraged any grants? Because I know some other cities such as Princeville and even Spring Lake has received some grants for their water infrastructure. Have we received any type of grants?
We have pursued options for a grant, and particularly on the sewer side. And recently, we were able to secure a grant for a study for entire sewer collection system, to help us to identify areas of vulnerability and capacity needs. So yes, we have been able to secure some grants. One of the things that I like to add regarding grant acquisitions is that if your rates are too low, then you're at a disadvantage when you put in your applications because you lose points on securing those grants. So this will help us also in our effort to seek additional grant funding.
And Brenton, with regard to the pump station that's on Old Mill Road, was that a grant fund associated with that?
Yes, we were able to secure some grant funding through Nash County for the Old Mill Road sewer pump station that is currently under construction. That has an anticipated completion date of in August.
Councilman Knight.
Appreciate you, your presentation. I just want us to be mindful that without a good water system, you can't grow without water. We also have to be mindful of those who are not or towns that don't have their water system. A lot of people are on the wells, and eventually wells become contaminated. And so it's important to have a good sewer system and a water system. We talk about going to the well, drawing water, and going to the outhouse. I sure don't want to go back that far. So I appreciate what you're doing.
I'll say just for emphasis to the public and all of our viewers out there. As we speak, there are probably 2.2 million people in this world today who do not have access to safe drinking water. 71% of the Earth's surface is covered with water, but 95% of that is tied up in the ocean, which means 97%. So of the last 3% of fresh water, 2.5% of that is tied up in glaciers. So technically speaking, only 0.5% of the world's water is drinkable. Hence the reason why it is such a precious commodity. And I just say that for emphasis because water is indeed life. It's not just a cliche statement, but without water, without good quality water, we won't be able to attract industries to Rockingham. We won't have economic development because water is indeed life.
Councilman TJ Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation and for your service. And this is, Councilman Dodge, this is just another point back to earlier about the fairness comment. I knew exactly what you meant about the fairness. My point was, as we just saw with Councilman Robinson asking another question, that was deferred. You're right. It's not fair for us to pose questions to staff that may not know the answers. However, when we have staff that does know the answers, the fairness is to have those answers for the citizens and for this board. So I would, if Mr. Manager, if you could direct whoever or who may can answer Mr. Robertson's question, so we can have those answers to move forward.
I'll let the finance staff speak for themselves, but anybody that is available in the audience today, working for the city of Rocky Mount, if they ask a question with regard to your department or division, feel free to chime in or raise your hand, and the mayor will accordingly appoint you.
Yes, Councilman Knight, recognize you.
I just want to say, when we talk about fairness, where we are today, if it was fairness, we would be where we are today. And remember that for such a long time, previous manager Rogers, certain council members would ask for information. He would say, I will get you a what?
Full report.
Full report. And never got the full report.
That's right.
And so it's important, yes, to be transparent. transparency and to have information that we can deliberate. But while we're here today, because we didn't get the full report, and it was said in the public square. And the last thing, and I was gonna say this at the end, but I'll save it. I'll save it.
Brendan?
All right, thank you, Bridget. Next we'll have, I think they're gonna combo it, Donald Perry and, Tim Farmer with, engineering and public works. That is.
Let's just go for it. Let's just take a break, maybe.
Yes, well, that's, this is Aaron show, so before we get into my.
Okay.
Good morning, Honorable Mayor and members of council. I'm Donald Perry, Director of Engineering, and the Stormwater Enterprise falls under my purview. I'm here today to speak with you about a proposed rate adjustment. We're proposing a rate increase of $2 per equivalent residential unit per month. Now, let's talk about the proposed projected revenues of that increase. For FY 27, the projected revenues for the current rate is a little over $5 million. The FY 27 projected revenues for the proposed rates is a little over $6.6 million. And on a stormwater residential rate comparison of current versus proposed, the current base rate is $6 per ERU. The proposed base rate is $8 per ERU. And there's a cost difference of $2 per month per ERU. Now let's talk about our stormwater residential rate comparison. So for the equivalent stormwater rate comparison for a single family home, the town of Nashville is $2.50, city of Goldsboro is $4.75, and the town of Tarboro is $6. City of Wilson is $6. The proposed rate adjustment is $8, and the city of Greenville is at $18.70. I do not have any data as to where they're going to propose that rate increase for FY 27. But also, we got to notice the level of service and how it varies by jurisdictions. Some different municipalities do not provide maintenance on open ditches on private property. We provide maintenance on over 70 miles of open ditch on the property. Also, some municipalities do a 3-month leaf collection of October, November, and December. However, we do the traditional leaf season and we supplement it through the entire year on a requested basis. With that, I'll try to answer any questions.
Any questions? Yes, sir. Councilman Harris.
Mr. Perry, thank you for the presentation. What impact will this have on businesses with their stormwater charge?
So per ERU, which is 2,519 square feet, it will go up $2 per ERU per month.
Well, I think businesses need to know that they're gonna see an increase if this is approved. So focus on residential, but it's all across the board.
Councilman Blackwell.
So why don't we explain what stormwater means? And why don't we explain what kind of costs we have ahead of us to maintain a system, much less improve it? And how much it's gonna cost if we could do everything now, 5 years, 10 years, you choose the increments. But why is this important? Because, and how is it calculated? I've heard a lot of commentary about, I don't need stormwater. What is this? I'm paying one thing, my neighbor's paying something else.
Right.
So there's a lot of questions rolled up in there, but I think you take us to the basics about what stormwater is, how it's calculated to the user, what kind of costs we have looking ahead of us, what do we have to deal with the challenges and cash wise?
Okay, stormwater is rainfall that falls on the ground, on an impervious area, and it runs off and it goes to the tar river.
What does impervious mean?
Impervious area is areas such as asphalt, concrete, and other rooftops that does not allow the rain to does not allow the rain to go into the ground. And basically, one of the things I explain to people when they call about stormwater, that says, they say, I don't have any stormwater in my yard, or I only have it in a ditch. But then if you may drive a food line, which most people, food line, Harris Tea or whatever, to the grocery store, then you'll have over colors that we maintain, and that the maintenance of that comes out of this fund. What was your next part?
My next part is how is it calculated? Is everybody paying the same amount everywhere? How do you calculate it?
So basically, we calculate it on an ERU basis, and every single residential, equivalent residential, that's equivalent residential unit, and it's 2,519 square feet. And in general, that is the average impervious area on a single family residential. So what we do is we charge all single family residential, including duplex, we charge them for per unit of $6 per unit.
And what does stormwater fund? You said, you talked about ditches,
Yes, sir.
and how does a person distinguish between sewer and stormwater? And do they use the same pipes, the same lines? And what happens when areas are being flooded or with regular rainfall? And what happens when higher than usual rainfall occurs? Where do we get the money from to address that?
Okay, so basically, our stormwater operations is around $3 million per year. Our stormwater admin is around 1.7, and our stormwater capital is around 0.7. And sorry, tell me the rest of your question.
I guess you, don't know if you would elaborate with regard to what happens when we have flooding in certain areas due to the impact of stormwater or lack of with regard to capital expenses.
Right. So we had a large rainstorm event, which it's been proven that our rainstorm events are getting more intense and more frequent. Then we have flooding that can cause people problems driving down the road. We have flooding out here in our parking lot in the front when we have a large rain event. And that can be very dangerous. Also, culverts that really need to be replaced. We have culverts that are over 80 years old, and we have some downtown drainage that is over 100 years old. It's actually held up pretty well for that long. And we have to get the money to fix that. And also, we can have water backing up in people's yards. If it stays in those yards, and it can start mosquitoes and that kind of stuff.
The last comment I just want to make is that there are whole communities, literally underwater, Battleboro,
Right.
which falls in my district.
Yes, sir.
We've had meetings with that community for the last, however long I've been on city council, about inadequate strategies from the city to help mitigate runoffs that occur, standing water, people's yards underwater. And our biggest challenge has always been, we don't have the money to do the level of work that needs to be done. And now the city has no funds anywhere to handle it. So, we got a challenge. That's more a statement than a question.
I agree with you. In fact, that we do have stormwater basin studies. Now, I've always hated what I call shelf studies. And basically, but we don't have the money to implement what was recommended in the study.
Thank you. Councilman Knight, would you like to be recognized?
Oh, no.
I'm sorry, your light was on that. Okay, well, it's 11:21. Yes, sir, Councilman Harris.
Thank you again, Mayor. One last statement, and we're now entering the season where landscapers will really start being busy. Homeowners starting cutting their grass. And I ride around this city and see homeowners as well as landscape operations, throw grass clippings in the street.
Right.
I would like for the city to send out, a notice that this is really not permitted. To tell us the impact of grass that accumulated in a catch basin.
Yes, sir. So when people put, residents put grass clippings in the curb, and then when it rains, it just washes those clippings down, and then they go in the basin and typically stop up the basin. But then when the storm, the bigger storm didn't come, that basin's already stopped up. And so, it can cause a flooding situation, and on streets where, like, comes across the street or mostly across the street, that's a traffic hazard.
I would like for us to somehow inform our residents as well as commercial operators that this is really not what it is. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? It's currently 11:23. We're going out this about an hour, a little less than an hour and a half. Let's take a 10-minute recess and reconvene here at 11:33. Back.
I don't use that part. He's up, man. Hold on. Good to see Go ahead, Connie.
I let him come to work today.
Really good.
This was, everybody knew what this was gonna be about.
I want to try to figure out how you plan to finish the first quarter.
Do the best.
I agree with that.
I mean, yes, there has to be some. It's just a tragedy. It just happened. And there's no other way to do it.
And now we can start doing, but the.
So they do. He said that's one of the things that the town does is maintain.
They don't.
How do you
measure stone? How do you make stone when it runs out the yard, runs on the roof, and runs down the street, into the yard, on the street? How do you make it?
You can do the topography. We can do it by topography. We can do what they call the rational
methods, you can do an SCS method, a number of different ways. But it's accepted by the engineering community.
Hogwash.
So I think it's start landlord. It has to be on the landlord. Good. So here's my. So.
It's 11:34. Okay, everybody's in places. Okay, you shoot, Mr. Walker.
Good morning. Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council, Tim Farmer, Director of Public Works. Standing for you this morning to present proposed environmental services rate adjustments. But I just want to take one quick moment to step back to the stormwater piece for the $2 storm increase per ERU. That also supplements stormwater operations that include ditch maintenance, street sweeping, and loose leaf collections, all of those collections that are vital to keeping water flowing into prevent flooding. As we look at the environmental services proposed rate class adjustments, we're looking at our 3 core services plus our city-owned municipal transfer station. And unfortunately, without the support of our enterprise funds, it's become necessary to propose a rate adjustment. And we look at our 3 core services plus our transfer station. We're proposing a 15% rate adjustment for our 3 collections, garbage, recycling, yard waste, a 5% rate adjustment for our municipal transfer station. As we look at our projected revenues for solid waste, as we look down the total, we see our services and our rate classes on the left. As we go down to the total projected revenues, at our current rates, the projected revenue is $8,531,181. With the proposed rate adjustment of 15%, that'll move us to $9,469,610 with a percentage difference of 11%. Looking at rate comparisons on our residential rate, our current base rate total per month is $18.50. Proposed increase or adjustment will take us to $21.25, which is a current difference of $2.75 a month, which is a 14.86% increase. $2.75 equates to about an annual increase of $33.
Annual
monthly increase of $275, which equates to about $33 a year. Total for single family. Looking at how we compare to our surrounding cities and towns as far as our rate studies. And you know that there are different levels of service provided, and Rocky Mount provides a premium service, in my opinion. And since coming aboard in 2019, I want to thank council for their support of Public Works and solid waste operations to get us where we need to be with our equipment and our needs. But looking at how we compare to our surrounding cities and towns, the city of Greenville was at 1925. Our proposed adjustment will take us to 2125. City of Wilson's at 2350. Roanoke Rapids 2458. Goldsboro 26, and the town of Harvard 2860. So looking at the level of service, we're not the most expensive. We're all actually on the lower end. And looking at the time of the year for the budget preparation, a lot of these municipalities and towns will actually make adjustments in their fee rates schedule as well. So we're not the lowest, but we're definitely not the highest. And as I've stated, some of the jurisdictions will be working on their rates in the near future. It's a very labor intensive business. And we look at global markets as we look at oil situation, which drives the cost of diesel fuel. We look at the global markets for plastics, as China's our biggest customer that purchases our plastics from our recyclables. So as we look at the global markets, we see the volatility, and we have to account for the increased cost of doing business. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Councilman Daughtry.
Well, I'm gonna make a comment. And my first comment is, contrary to popular belief, I don't have any ownership in any sort of commercial waste industry type business that has been stuff on social media, and it's false. But my comment is gonna be, it's one thing increasing the fees that we need to and recover our costs. At our transfer station, one of the concerns and one of the things that even came out the audit and even the LGC is talking about is our inflated revenue numbers. Our revenue, the transfer station, are we meeting the revenue numbers that were projected in the last budget? Are they down? And in what percentage are they down? Do you know that?
I don't have those numbers prepared at this current time. I'm working with the finance team and budget office to prepare to look and analyze those numbers so we can get a better, clearer picture of what those numbers look like. Because I know it's a thin line between charging too little and charging too much.
Right. So is the volume down or up?
The volume is down, slightly down.
So, based on what's being presented, we've got some of the highest transfer station rates in the state. And that's fine. But if people are going to other municipalities to their transfer station, we're losing revenue. And I think you strongly need to look at that, because, which is why our revenue is probably inflated in that particular line item, I would imagine. But I don't know that, so you need to confirm it. And in review, the rest of it. And when is the last time we've done a cost of service comparison?
I will have to get the budget off to see what year that was. Since being here, I came aboard in 2019 and it hasn't been one done.
So I would, Mr. Manager, I would strongly encourage, if not a formal cost of service study, at least compare to other municipalities and other jurisdictions on both on residential and on the commercial side of it, to make sure we're covering our cost in this particular area.
Yes, and in hearing that direction, what I was actually going to recommend to council for staff to do what we can from an internal standpoint with regard to our peers, but also do cost of service analysis across the board for all of our city services, because it seems that's consensus of the council with regard to the other departments as well. It's including the other enterprise funds. So I think we should just look at getting a third party to do a cost of service analysis across the board.
But we've done cost of service on water and on electric, haven't we?
No, I'm referring to with regard to the different administrative fees that everybody was asking for and all that stuff. I'm just talking about incorporating it all, doing what we can internally, and then, also looking at a third party to do what we can from a internal standpoint.
Okay.
Councilman Knight?
I had a question. I think you mentioned about the Councilmember Mize, the transfer station rates were much higher than others.
Yeah, if you take a look, City of Rocky Mount as we sit today, including the $2 tax, we're at $88.50. Halifax County is $75. GFL Wilden is $72. GFL Wilson $65. Edgecombe County is the closest of $80. And if you go to Wake County, the range is between $35 and $40. So, you know, we don't need to give the service away, but we need to be competitive. So people aren't going to, you know, Wilson or to Halifax County we're losing revenue is what I'm saying.
Right, and it seemed like if I was in that position, if I had to drive to Raleigh, Scarborough, and Greenville, you're probably paying, it would equate out in transportation for us.
Yes.
Gas. Right.
We're looking at our current business model for the transfer station, but it is a additional cost for the travel time to travel to those other transfer stations.
Yeah, and I'm quite sure they would rather pay a little bit more here to dump their trash than they drive it.
Save on the time.
That's correct. And also, just looking at the environmental service rates, it looks like, even with the increase that we're right in line with,
Our neighboring
our
cities.
neighboring city. And I like the service that we provide.
Yes.
We try bagging up 100 bags of leaves and, you know, so it's a good service. So I appreciate all that you do.
Thank you. We want to definitely, even though it's the worst time, we want to definitely continue our level of service to protect the health and safety of our residents. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Yes, Councilman Blackwell.
Thank you. So, explain transfer station.
What is that? Transfer station is located, the city owns and operates its own municipal transfer station. It's located on Thorpe Road behind the YMCA. It's simply a transfer point for solid waste or garbage. Trucks come in, weigh in, dump out, and they weigh again, and that's how the outside customers, private haulers are charged by the team.
So what happens to the waste that is dumped in our locations?
All the waste that's collected by city crews along with what's brought in by other towns and private haulers, they're loaded onto trailers and hauled to an approved solid waste landfill in Bertie County. We don't have a permitted landfill in Edgecombe, Nashua, Wilson County. So all Wilson takes theirs to the approved landfill as well.
Do we pay them or do they pay us or?
We have to pay for the disposal costs of
So-
putting it in the landfill.
So you pay a cost to feed a Bertie County
Yes, sir.
to fill up, how large is it?
It's humongous. It's got a 30-year lifespan on it. It'll hold 30 years worth of garbage.
30 years worth of everybody's trash.
Yes, sir.
And what happens to that trash?
It is buried in that approved landfill, which is lined and regulated by federal government regulations.
What other options do we have? So we gotta do what we gotta do.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Councilman Harris.
For the general public, when a new person moves into the city of Rocky Mount and requests a regular garbage bin and recycle bin, what are the costs of those bins?
The cost for residential customers, the cost of an additional rollout card is $53. We provide the card for new residents based on moving into the city. You have to start the utility, go to the utility office and set up an account where solid waste is added to that account, but the cost is $53.
If someone has a broken cart
Thanks.
and wants it to be replaced, is there a charge to the property owner, or do we replace it without a charge.
We replace it without a charge currently.
But it's got to meet a good definition of brokenness.
It's got to be the threshold of brokenness. If there's such a word. It can, if we can repair it, we also stock parts to repair cars. We stock the lids, the wheels, the bars. We can repair it unless it's basically melted down by hot ashes most of the time.
Well, I appreciate the public knowing that. That's should be informative news to the public. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilman Robertson?
Regarding recycle, are we generating revenue, from our plastic? I heard you say selling it to China. Are we, generating, how much are we generating for the sales of our plastic to China?
The revenue is based on the volatility of the market. When China's not buying plastics, we have to pay. When they are buying, we get a reduced rate on our tonnages, which lowers our costs, which kind of equates to revenue in a sort of kind of way, but it's basically cost reduction that we don't have to pay. And we encourage right now with the volatility of the world, China's up and down. You know, most of us know about, just not to get off subject, but most of us know about Temu and China. The time weight on the recyclables can vary based on how much they're buying. So it all depends on the market, whether we generate any revenue or cost savings or whether we have to pay. But we have the budget for the worst case scenario to pay.
Any other questions? Thank you. I guess, we won't give you that.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to attempt to try to present here because I have a lot of things I'm assuming I'm going to get some questions. I'm going to be able to write them down, but if not, if it doesn't work from up here, I'll go to the podium. And thank you to the staff for all the work that you've done with the presentation. I think you've done a great job presenting information as well as answering questions. So my portion of the presentation kind of brings everything together. And this slide right here kind of depicts the overall agenda for the next couple of slides. So over the last several weeks, you all have seen our current cash flow projections for the calendar year of 2026. In order for us to improve our situation, we're going to have to take some very dramatic cuts. We're going to have to reduce the spending. We're going to have to look at amending the current fiscal year's budget, and you all can expect to have modifications in the next couple of weeks for the fiscal year 27 budget. I call it a trifold approach because we can't just look at one. I think some of the council members up here stated, Councilmember Harris, you talked about looking at expenditures as well as looking at revenues, and everybody's made some good points that I, along with staff, am taking notes. So I think that's the only way we want to get out of this recovery. We can't just look at one side of the equation. We're gonna have to look at reducing our spending. We're gonna have to look at ways to increase our revenue, and we're gonna also have to look at making some drastic cuts for the fiscal year 27 budget. Some of the things that you'll have in this packet, in this presentation, with regards to the expenditures, capital outlay, operating, salary, benefits, and then you've already had the presentation with regard to the utility rates. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll continue to evaluate the current fiscal year and then look at the predictions moving forward. This is the current cash flow projection for calendar year 2026. So this goes from now up until the end of the calendar year, December 2026. This is if nothing changes. So you all have seen this the other day when the local government commission was here, when they presented. You've seen it from myself as Melissa Conner. This is if nothing changes. And you'll notice in July, we will begin to operate in the red, which is something that we cannot do. So change must occur. With regard to the capital outlay reductions, no additional projects unless critical to our operating, as a city, will not be approved. We've also limited for the remainder of the fiscal year, any, active encumbrances. We will also reduce, expenditures for operations, and we've, hopefully, if it gets adopted, we will improve the utility rates effective April 1st. This chart shows the impact for the rest of the fiscal year, which is different from the calendar year. The fiscal year ends on June 30th, 2026. So based off of the expenditures that you will see in the presentation, if approved, if adopted, we will end the fiscal year at above the negative mark here. You'll see a presentation later on in the slide that shows that actual figure. But if you see on this one in the third column at the bottom, based on the reductions, we will be in the black by approximately $7 million. This is the impact for the rest of the calendar year. Being that our situation, we're in such a serious financial position, we can't just predict or try to project where we are for the end of the fiscal year. We have to try to look out a little bit longer than that, because there's likely going to have to be, again, some drastic changes. And so if those changes are adopted, we feel confident that we will be in the black by the end of the calendar year, which is our number one goal. This line chart shows the difference. So the red line depicts where we are if we currently stay on the path that we're on without any changes. The upper line, which looks a little bit black, that reflects where we start to rebound. And our goal is to implement changes now. Again, these are just some of the ones that are recommended. There'll likely be more that we'll be recommending over the next couple of weeks or days. But if approved, we will start to rebound and go up for the rest of the calendar year, starting again in July, which if we do nothing will be negative 3.4 million. But if we implement some of the recommended suggestion changes, we will start to improve and have a balance. This is our unrestricted cash balance of about 6.7. This is where staff will need direction from council and consensus on where we go past today. At the retreat, I think a couple of members talked about, what they viewed as, from an individual standpoint, as core services. And so what staff will need direction on moving forward is what the governing body as a whole views as core services, because that's what we will look at when we look at additional cuts in our expenditures. So again, I stated at the retreat, and I've stated publicly multiple times, for the only mandated service that we're required to have is the Development Service Department with regard to building and inspections. That's mandated by the general statutes. While all the other services are alike, and some may feel that they're needed, they are not mandated. So number one, we have to keep that quadrant where it is. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't make changes within that department, but that is the only one that is required by law. The other ones are, if you go to the right, the core. Obviously, the governing body, city clerk's office, city manager's office, finance, E911, police, fire, human resources, public works, and technology services. Those are what we have gathered over the last couple of weeks, and what I personally deem as our core services. Doesn't mean they can't be adjusted, but those are the core services. The bottom right quadrant is the quality of life. You use it, your housing and community development, human relations, park and recreations. Not to say that those things are not important, but most would agree that they are not considered core. And then we have our enterprise services, which is business collections, energy resources, stormwater and water resources, which you just heard from recently.
Clarification.
Yes, sir. Councilman Aldridge.
Business and collections technically is not under enterprise. Why are you putting it under enterprise?
Well, if you look down at the bottom, placement may be pertaining to components of a department. And so because they service our bills, we just put it in, but it's not necessarily an enterprise department.
Okay.
Councilman Robertson.
Is this in addition to the 4 scenarios that you produced to us at the retreat?
No, it's not necessarily addition. It's based off of the fee that staff received from the retreat. So it got narrowed down to four scenarios initially, and then it was narrowed down to two because the first two scenarios did not keep us in the black. So scenario 4, scenario 3 kept us in the black, even though it was a small amount. It kept us from going, bankrupt. This presentation that we're about to continue showing you where the reductions are incorporates scenario 3 and 4. So it's not an addition, it's just based on the feedback that we received at retreat, we added more reductions.
Thanks.
So going to those reductions with regard to expenditures. One of the things that was recommended was to suspend the city's contribution to the 401k starting in April. And so what that means is currently by law, the city is required to pay 5% for all sworn law enforcement officers. But the city is not required to contribute to, I guess, what we consider the general employee to their 401k. Right now, regardless of whether employee that's labeled in that general class contributes or not, the city for the last several years has contributed 3% on that employee's behalf. What the recommendation coming before you today is to discontinue that match, but still allow general employees to contribute on their own. If we are to do that, that would generate a savings of approximately $50,000 a month. So over the course of a year, it would generate savings of approximately 1.3 million. The next line item is eliminate downtown grants. This is not the same thing as the 4 major incentive grants. These are our ancillary grants that we have given out for certain economic development projects downtown and elsewhere. Right now, we currently have a budget, a remaining balance of $230,000 for the current fiscal year. The recommendation is to not accept any new applications and book that as a savings. Next line item was one of the ones that was in scenario, I believe it was 4 at the time. And at the time, we were recommending to try to hold on to certain festivals or community events. But based on our financial position, my professional recommendation is that we eliminate those, or not necessarily, doesn't necessarily say eliminate, but I should say suspend them until we get on better financial footing. If we are to do that this year, that would be a savings of approximately $128,000 for the remainder of the fiscal year. Next item is a big ticket item. These are the major downtown investment grants that I was just speaking of. Right now, we have 4 of those. 2 of those are currently underway, and we have 2 that have not yet officially started from a construction standpoint. And so the recommendation is to extend those, eliminate those, or renegotiate those. I currently have meetings set up with the grantees, and they are currently negotiating with me to try to see if they can work with our cash flow situation, possibly not starting a project at a later date, or renegotiate the terms, but that's still an active process. But if we were to do that, it would be a savings of about the next one is just eliminate non-essential travel paid by the city. This will go across the board for every city department. And then the last one is just reduction across the board identified by individual departments. Over the last couple of weeks, I've worked with department heads and asked them to submit recommendations on where they view they could have more reductions. Again, as a manager, while I'm responsible for the entire city, I'm not the technical expert in any of the individual fields. So that's a team approach. Whenever I made the introduction earlier, I talked about how we work together as a team to come up with these recommendations. And while everything did not get approved from their standpoint, they did have the opportunity to make the first slide. And then I assume that over the next couple of days, we'll be looking at that even more detail with the guidance from council. But that's where we are with that. If we are to reduce that by that percentage, it would be a savings for the rest of the fiscal year of about $720,000.
Mr. Manager,
Councilman Doss.
can you go back to the top with the 401k, and you mentioned it's mandatory with certain departments. Repeat which ones are mandatory.
For the 401k, it's only mandatory by the state for law enforcement officers. The city's required to pay 5% for law enforcement officers, one officers. For every other general employee, it is not mandated that we contribute at all.
And then with these suspended public events, I guess staff could go out and see if they can find sponsorships for those.
That is correct. Now, some of that is with regard to timing. So because when you're dealing with the events and artists, they have to have schedules and it's a timing thing. I think it'd be hard for us to do anything for the June and July time period, but it may be possible for us to do something at the end of the calendar year.
But I think if we knew how much each event was, you know, ballpark, I mean, I know things change expenses, you don't know. Someone may, business may step up. I'm thinking more the July 4th this year.
Well, I can tell you, and we do have that information. If you don't already have it, we can make sure that you get it. But just off the top of my head, I can tell you that the fireworks alone for July 4th over the course of the last couple of years has been in the $20,000 range. Just for the fireworks alone. And that is the reason, and that's actually a discount because historically the city has had that Independence Day celebration on July 3rd because it's even more expensive if we actually do it on July 4th. For some of the other festivals, I know that over the last 5 years, the city has had what we consider end of year celebration and go-go festival. That event, we've been managing to do all of it, paying all the vendors, all the employees for under $20,000. But again, it varies just depending on the event.
I understand that, but if we can get a ballpark, you might find a sponsor and someone that we can.
Yeah, I welcome that opportunity. We can provide you with those details. I'll reach out to Joe Dunn, he's our Parks and Recreation Director, and he has the cost for every event.
Thank you.
Right, the other reductions that are recommended is reductions to some of our partnerships. So right now, we have a partnership with the Gateway, the Carolina Gateways Partnership. Their baseline expenditures for the current fiscal year is $353,000. And then we're recommending that we reduce that for the rest of the calendar year by about $14,000. We have a downtown lease for our downtown business office that currently is about $40,000, and we're looking at terminating that lease or at least renegotiating that lease because due to our recent reset that we had in the fall, we have a lot of vacant spaces within City Hall. So the goal was to, if that department is still going to be a department that they would operate out of City Hall at the current structure. The city recently entered into agreement with lobbying services at the federal level. We also have lobbying services at the state level. Those are not mandatory while they are helpful, but if we are to get out of those, that would save us about that would save us about $69,000 for the remainder of the calendar year. We have other professional services that are offered. You see the savings with those. And then also reducing our operating expenses by a certain percentage that will get us about $600,000 in savings for the rest of the calendar year. And then if you recall, over the last couple of months, the city council adopted a new longevity policy that changed it from a percentage to a flat rate. When that item was presented to council, there was a line in it that says subject to availability of funding. Obviously, we are not in a position where we are funding that. So we are saying that as we move into the calendar year or to the next fiscal year, that we do not fund that as well. With that, I'm open to
Yes, sir. Councilman Dontridge, and I will recognize Councilman Harris.
In your original presentation last week, you included several things, and obviously the one that a lot of calls and a lot of concern is the Imperial Center. Can you address that, please?
Yes, based on the feedback that I received from council, that was not included in this. So as of now, that is to remain funded. I will say that the Imperial Center does have a lot of capital needs that they need to address. So even if it is decisions made that they are continuing to be funded, it will likely still have to be closed down for repairs for at least a few weeks, if not a couple of months.
For repairs.
That is correct.
Okay.
Councilman Harris.
Yes, that was my initial question. I'm very happy that we are going to continue the operations of the Imperial Center. We do know some improvements and repairs do need to be made, and hopefully we can keep that repair period as short as possible. But I just wanted to briefly ask, and I'm looking at the scenarios presented to the council last week during the retreat. We didn't take scenario number 1 nor number 2. And I don't know what these costs may be, but in number 2, you were thinking about eliminating internal audit. You know, in my opinion, we haven't really had an audit program ever since I've been on the council. And I don't know if we have 1 position open or 2, et cetera. I think we need to seriously take a look at that. And I think you as manager over all the operations of the department and working more closely with your department heads and other staff members, we can probably do a better job of making sure our policies and procedures are followed. And then in police virtual call center, that was under scenario number 2, and it's no longer there. I wanted to ask that last week, but I forgot. But just FYI, if again, we're gonna be looking at hopefully some other potential savings, et cetera, especially during the budget period. We just need to be open-minded to any and all things, and I just want to bring that to your attention.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify, this is a working document, and this is hopefully to get us to the current end of the fiscal year. When we last heard from the LGC, they requested that we take immediate action to reduce expenditures and increase revenue, even though those revenues will not be realized for a couple of months, because if the new rates are adopted, it will take us time to get that revenue in, and it's also based on our collection rate. I want to be clear, though, these are just recommendations, and there will likely be further recommendations in the next coming weeks as well as days, because again, our largest expense has been our capital and our personnel costs. And unfortunately, I think that when we get into fiscal year 27 budget discussions, I will be recommending further reductions across the board, including, starting at the top in the city manager's office with regard to restructuring and every other department. Again, I won't be making those decisions in a vacuum. We would be coming from each department because they understand their operations better than I do. But as a whole, there's likely to be significant cuts across the board.
Councilman Blackwell.
I think the manager asked my primary question, which was, this is where we start, not where we end.
That's exactly right.
And when we start having conversations about what the city of Rocky Mount is able to invest in, is concentrating on what we have available to work with, and then priorities that are being set, first of all, by the state of North Carolina. I think we've been dancing around that topic the whole time we've been here. We've been dancing around it. We're not just making changes because it's time to make changes. We're in a deficit position, a deep deficit position. And we are being guided and focused in areas of reductions as well as areas of fee increases. These percentages and the strategies that have been incorporated have been done in consultation with the state. And they made it very clear to us that we either do what we need to do, or they'll come in and do it for us. So the calls, the commentaries about the options that we have are conversations that are rooted in posturing and not rooted in grounded truth. And while we can, and while we will do everything we can, I believe, as a collective body, to keep as much as we can in place, we've all got to realize that things might get tighter before they get better. I don't know what else to say other than budgets must be reduced. Fees must be increased. If we don't do it, the state will do it. You can make a political decision not to do it, but it won't change the difference about what's going to get done. And so I just need us to know from this point forward, what are our actions that we're requested to take today? And what are our decisions that we can make today? And what will be deferred to later dates to consider away?
Yes, with regard to what can be made today, staff can get direction on some of the items with regard to like the 401k. We can go ahead and implement those things now. With regard to the rates, we're required by law to have a public hearing period. And I think the idea is that after the presentations today, we will have that public hearing next week. And then there's likely to be a special call meeting. I don't know that date, but maybe it's 30th, I think, the 30th. And then at that point, council can officially adopt adjusted rates, which will then go into effect on April 1st. Then the budget amendment, we hope to have, if these recommendations are okay, we hope to have that before the council for consideration on March 23rd. And at that point, you would vote on amended budget, which we will take with us to the local government commission when they request for us to meet with them in person on April 1st and show them that the city is in fact trying to correct this situation, even though we do know that it is no silver bullet. It's going to be a multi-pronged approach. It could be a long approach, but we are headed in the right direction. I think if we show that, they will continue to allow us to have a little bit of discretion, and that's my goal.
Thank you. I'll recognize Councilman TJ Walker, then Charles Robertson, then Charles.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Manager, for your presentation and for the overview of operating expenditures. My question, twofold, consensus on core services. Will you be looking for us to provide direction in that today or Monday? What is our timeline?
That would be helpful today.
Secondly, was the 401k as it pertains to our benefits. I just want to make sure I'm clear, because I know we've several things packaged and bundled in those, but does that include like our HSA and for other staff, like educational incentives and things?
Right now, education incentives they've already been suspended before today. With regard to HSA, that has already been paid out for the current year, so we will not be able to realize those savings until calendar year 27. So if I would add to that, again, it's not mandated, so that would be something that we would be looking at. But at this current state, because it's already been expensed, we can't realize the savings, but we'll be able to realize those savings in the upcoming calendar year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Robertson.
Thank you for putting this together, and I want to let y'all know that LGC, the Local Government Commission, is in the room right now, Ms. Denise Canada, and I appreciate her for being here. So, but I want to be very clear. She said at the meeting, this is a cash flow problem that must be solved by reducing expenses, not by increasing revenue in the short term. That's what stated directly by her. You're not going to solve this problem in the short term with revenue. You have to solve this problem by cutting expenses. So with that guidance in mind, I want to start looking at what you presented to us today. And one of the largest expenses in the state auditor he released last Monday was personnel. But yet, in this plan, there's no furloughs, there's no layoffs, and no meaningful restructuring of salaries and benefits. So instead, we are cutting programs, reducing services, and considering rates on residents, while leaving our largest cost category largely untouched. This is not a balanced approach. Before we raise rates on our residents, we should be looking at furloughs, personnel adjustments, renegotiation of contracts, temporary closure is necessary. We asked for, I think Councilman Harris, we asked for a la carte, we asked for a menu of things we could cut along with the budget impact, the financial impact of those things. Mr. Manager, do we have that?
Understanding that you have it, we presented information for you for the last several weeks, and several months. And I stated at the beginning of this session is that this was just not the end result. I think Councilmember Blackwell stated that we would have to make further cuts. And I also stated that when we start looking at the fiscal year 27 budget, which we should be in the process of doing now, we would be looking at restructuring across the board. So I don't disagree with the statements that you made. I'm just stating that we just said that literally about 5 minutes ago.
Well, I don't see it because we was talking about like you had the Imperial Center, which you've taken off. I'm happy that you are, but I asked for like the event center, if that was a freeze on that, because I believe we all wanted to know what was the charge on that, because it was losing $4 million a year. Councilman Dutcher it was losing 7 and something million a year. So I don't know how we can make informed decisions if we don't actually have a menu, a la carte. This is like a fixed menu. We want an a la carte approach where we had things that we could close and the financial impact. If it's because this is affecting a lot of, we putting it on the back of the citizens with the utilities, and we're not doing the cuts that the LGC, this is nothing political. The LGC themselves, we can't put that they said raise rates. I don't see anywhere in their statement where they told us to raise utility rates. So we have to look at a balanced approach, and that menu will help this council make informed decisions of what's the financial impact if we take certain actions. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, if you will, I'd like to recognize Councilman Javaris Walker, but I'll absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Do you want to respond?
I was going to respond. I said, this is a slide where I specifically asked for what you just requested. It's the issue that the staff has had over the last, I'd say, couple of days, a couple of weeks, is that, we hear from individual council members, but as a governing body, I need to hear from the majority and give me directives. I don't have a problem doing whatever you say, as long as it's legal and ethical. If you get 4 votes, staff will implement it. My job is to carry out what you all recommend that we do, as long as it's ethical and legal. So that's the menu. Tell me what you want to get cut, and we will evaluate that.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I recognize Councilman Javaris Walker.
So I have 2 questions, man. One of them, what's the saving cost for the longevity cuts? Thank you.
Right off the top of my head, the initial longevity cost the city about over $1 million. I think it was about 1.3. But again, that information has already been provided to council. I don't have that today, but I think the new policy, with the current amount of people that we have still eligible for longevity, it would be a savings of about 500,000.
Another question too. I know I see the Imperial Center was taken off. with the summer camp, we are still gonna have summer camp at this moment, correct?
That is not, on the table at the current moment. I think, in the budget, we were gonna have, one summer camp available, but, again, that was not a mandatory service, so, the current recommendation is to not have, all the summer camps open at this point in time. It's about $30,000 to $40,000 to host, each summer camp, and being that it wasn't mandatory, the recommendation is not to host that.
So not the host, not even, so right now, as it stands, there's no summer camp.
My understanding is that there is one,
Okay.
so one summer camp.
Councilman Blackwell?
Thank you. I think it's very important to represent not pieces of information, but the whole bundle. If you want to get technical, which sounds like we are, the LGC, the letter from the local government commission read, you face a dual challenge. It says the first bullet says you must immediately reduce spending to improve your cash situation. This cannot wait. Your staff's estimates show that as of July 2026, you will no longer be able to make your debt service payments, pay your staff, or operate key services unless you make budget cuts now. The second bullet, which we're acting like did not exist, you must adopt an austere, that means closely managed, no frills, structurally sound, balanced budget for fiscal year 26-27 that is built on accurate revenue estimates, which we've been questioning and trying to understand, and that improves the cash position of every fund. Every fund. Do y'all hear that? Every fund. We have had extensive presentations in council retreat and now in the public that have showed us we're operating our utility funds in the deficit, in the red. And we've been told by the local government commission, which is the state, that we gotta cut the budget significantly. And that's why I asked the question of the manager, is it the beginning or the end? It takes time. We had this letter given to us within a week. And when we start asking departments about what to eliminate and who to eliminate, it takes more than 5 minutes to do that. It takes time. We've had more study time to evaluate if we're operating revenue utilities or revenue from utilities. We've had more time to figure that out, and we've had commission studies. And you've now heard what those studies have proposed. So from what I see, this is a phased approach. LGC has said, and the manager has reiterated, and we got a letter to say so, that on April the 1st, they want to see what this city council is going to do to reduce expenses and increase the revenue. And they're calling the manager, the mayor, and the mayor pro tem to stand before them to see if we got the guts, the backbone, and the decision-making ability to do what needs to be done. Am I right or wrong? So what I'm saying today is that some of these questions that are being asked cannot be answered quickly. You can't throw around big numbers without understanding other implications. And if we're going to have a debate, let's understand what we're debating and not confuse people with pieces of information. and posturing because there's an end game that somebody else wants to see. I just want to see Rocky Mount stable. I want to see us not have to change and shift everything that we do and who we are. I want to see us operate in integrity. And I don't want to have to pay no more than I have to, and not you either. And at the same time, we got to pay our bills, just like everybody else. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'll recognize Councilman Harris and Councilman Knight. Councilman Robertson, you have your mic lit. Is that something you?
Yes, I want to speak. but
Okay,
you can-
I'll recognize you afterward. Councilman Harris?
I'm gonna make my remarks, short since, Councilman Blackwell so eloquently stated what I heard from LGC last week, as well as the letter we received. Again, we're at the cliff. I can't make it any clearer than that. I want us to put that car in reverse and get it as far back as we can away from the cliff. We cannot find, I don't know what the additional revenues. I hate this. I personally hate it. I hate it for all of our constituents. By golly, I've been a part of this council for 4 years. I have skin in this, and I wish I could have done things different. I wish I could have spoken more broadly and more passionately about this and this and this. And that is my mistake, and I apologize. I really do. But by golly, we are going to work to make this right. And we're going to have to increase revenues. Last week, I also heard that there is two sides to the balance sheet. And there's an operating statement behind the balance sheet. Since 2012, long before most of us on this council, utility rates were not increased. Looking back, I wish they had done incremental small increases. But at the time, the city council saved our residents money by having the lowest possible bill possible. But right now, we have got to work together. We're going to look at continuing ways to see what reduces, expenses can be reduced between now and June 30th. July 1 is a new day. And we're going to continue to look at ways to reduce expenses. But by golly, I know there's some ways that we need to look at increasing revenues. One of them, we issue code enforcement fines. There's a lot outstanding in code enforcement fines. We don't have a staff right now to properly collect those. Let's hire a third party and pay them 1/3 and let us keep 2/3. 2/3 of something is better than nothing. So there are ways that we can look at increasing revenues, and we're gonna look at that. Because at the end of the day, in a few years, I want us to lower our property taxes possibly. I want us to lower or keep level our utility rates. And that's what I'm committed to do. It's a hard decision to make. And I appreciate Denise Kennedy being back here today. But by golly, I heard last week, if we don't have something to her by March the 24th, she's going to put something on the agenda for April the 1st to take over this city. She has given us some more time. She has asked, as Councilman Blackwell, 4 people, including our financial director, to be at the LGC meeting April the 1st. And I'm hoping that what we have done, and I commend the staff, all the hard work they have done over the last 6-7 days, they have been hard at work overtime in putting this together. We're not finished. There will continue to be revisions. As it said right there, up there, we're going to look at revisions from what coming to us on the 27 budget. We're going to scrutinize those to see where we can make further improvements. But we're at to stroke of midnight. And I'm like Council Blackwell. We got to do what's in the long-term best interest of this city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank the council.
Thank you. Councilman Knight, I'll recognize you.
Yes, thank you to the manager and the staff and to the LGC for being a part of our discussions for the last couple of weeks. And part of the discussion from the LGC was stated a few minutes ago and posted on social media, but the entire response and conversation was not, because we didn't want to make it political or to even bring that out in a way that would be to drag the LGC into that. And thank you, Ruben, for clarifying the rest of the response that Councilmember Robinson read. I just want to say 2 Timothy 2:15. It's a study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. We know how we got here. You read the auditor's report. You read the minutes from 2023 to 2026. Look at the council's videos of committee of the whole and council meeting of various statements that all the council members made. I'm very adamant about the former manager Keith Rogers. I said it in the public, I'm in it today and say it again. Council members in Dumfries said early on, he comes to a city this size or larger, it's going to be 10 times worse. That's what happened in Dumfries. It was said repeatedly. Reports and information was asked, frowned upon, so they get a full report. So we know how we got here. We look at our financials, we start from 2023 from 115 million to now. Read the information, rightly dividing the word of truth. And I appreciate the LGC being here, because we are elected to make decisions. And they clearly stated if we don't make the decision, then they would make the decision. We gave our city manager the directive to bring us back a plan, which was 4 scenarios. He recommended at least scenario 3 and 4. Only one that part of 3 and 4 I was really concerned about was not the only one, but the Imperial Center. And I said that up front, and I thank you for working a way to keep that. I think that is important. And it is a complementary to our event center that brings thousands of people here to our city. Regardless of what people say about our city, this is a good city. Regardless of what has happened in the past and what's happening now, it's still a good city. And this complements our events and our children. I'm still concerned just a little bit about the summer camps, because if we don't have those, that's a camp that started when I was young at South Rocky Mountain. They kept me out of the streets. And we can see the violent crimes with youth. And I would like to see how we can at least keep those camps, to keep our youth engaged. So again, the data is out there. If you really want to know the truth, stop reading this stuff on social media.
Come on now.
Most of it's garbage to create division and further division. just pick up the manual and read it. And the last thing, when you're doing your Bible study, you just don't read the King James Version or whatever you're studying or whomever you're studying about. You always have a reference point. Some have King James Version, the NIV. They have all these, and then they have other reference to be able to rightly divide the scriptures. So I'm just using that as a parable today. We know what happened. We got the report. Read the report, compare it to the minutes, compare it to the videos, and rightly divide the truth. And where we are today, we have to make those decisions because of the failed mistakes that we did not oversee our city manager and the numbers that we were presented in the budget sessions, saying that we had plenty of money. That's how we got here. And I'm like Councilmember Harris, I don't want to put it in reverse. I want to go over the mountaintop to the other side, because we can do that. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, I just want to add, so we did mention about the summer camps and right now possibly only having one open. But the goal right now for a cost saving measure is to just have that one open, but continue to have the centers that most of the camps are held to still have those operable. So it won't be like staffing a summer camp, but kids will still be allowed to go to like South Rocky Mount, BTW, that type of thing. Yeah, and then the other thing I would like to mention with regard to our costs moving forward, as we talk about adopting the revised budget for this current fiscal year and this fiscal year, I reiterate what was stated in our financial audit and the audit that was done by the Office of the State Auditor. Our biggest expenses are capital and our personnel. So while this plan, we try to incorporate all of the things that were discussed over the last couple of years, a lot of what was mentioned in this presentation are one-time expenses. My goal is to work with council and staff on identifying the reoccurring expenses, because that's where we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck with regard to savings now for the short term and the long term. And so we're going to have to look at restructuring the organization from top to bottom citywide and see what savings we can find by combining positions, eliminating positions, and seeing what we can do basically more with less, and then delaying some of the capital projects and only focus on the mission critical projects. And then if we review what we have coming in from a revenue side, hopefully we can continue to build back our fund balance and not delay before we get too far down the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you. Thank
Councilman
you.
Roberts.
Appreciate it. Appreciate that, looking at cutting expenses. Well, we can hear it straight from the horse's mouth because we have the LGC here. And she left the room, but we have our great finance director that worked with the LGC. If these, the 15%, because I don't want you to get caught in scare tactics and that we have to increase the utility 15%. This is what the LGC told us to do. It's the LGC recommendations for us to increase the utilities by 15%. And I would love to hear that from the LGC or either our finance director that worked with the LGC. Because what I'm saying is the first thing that was read was to reduce expenditures. So if we reduce expenditures, and one of the biggest expense, and I know Bradley, you said that at the retreat, is that administration costs, that administration fee, right? That's taking up a big portion of your money. So until we're able to look at that, and what the LGC did say is we had structural deficiencies. So if we have a bucket that have a hole in it and we keep pouring water in it, that's not going to fix the issue. So we had a reset moment. So clear that the LGC said raising revenue at this time is not going to fix the problem. I would love to hear, so it's not anything political, if the LCGC is recommendation of us raising utilities 15%, or is that staff recommendation?
So I will take the first stab at that, and Cheryl, please feel free to come up to the podium. But the LGC is not going to tell any local government at the current state where they're not taking over the books on specific percentage that needs to occur. That is the governing body's job based on the recommendation of professional staff and consultants. That percentage is what was recommended by staff, which most of the staff had outside help with consultants, and that's what you have before you today. That percentage could be more, that percentage could be less, but again, where we are now, the financial audit that was recently conducted by our outside third party, Mulligan Jenkins, showed where each of our funds had no fund balance, including the general fund. I think the general fund was at a negative 13%. And so you can't cut your way out of that. It has to be a multi-pronged approach, which is why the first slide that I have up here says trifold approach: reduce spending, amend the current fiscal year budget, plan for fiscal year 27. There's no silver bullet. If there was a silver bullet, we would have done it a long time ago. But we have to be realistic on our expectations. And again, as Councilmember Blackwell stated, this is not the end. This is just the beginning. But I want to be clear that no outside organization from the state is going to specify what a local government percentage should be. Our percentages are based on the calculations that were presented in the financial audit as well as outside consultants. And Cheryl, if you want to follow up with that, feel free to.
Slide you on.
Thank you. Thank you. Talk a little bit about enterprise funds and what the expectation of enterprise funds are. When we've done the services, it is imperative from financial perspective that that those services are and that the revenues cover the expenditures. And as we talked earlier today, there's two ways that public services are provided in a number of organizations, especially those that only have water, sewer, and stormwater. Keep those within within the city, and then then some organizations do decide to break that out and have a separate organization. Either way, the utility funds have to be self-supporting, and they have to include the services that are either provided under the city umbrella or separately, such as Greenville Utilities Commission. For a number of years, I've worked for a public utility. That public utility is Cape Fear Public Utility Authority, and it's in New Hanover County. And New Hanover County and the city of Fayetteville and city of Wilmington, New Hanover County, city of Wilmington, were under some federal consent decrees that were very expensive because they were allowing sanitary sewer to go into the pristine water that they have in New Hanover County. And so they decided to combine their utilities into a separate organization that only handled water, sewer, stormwater, and then the collection of for some of the other city services. A separate organization. So that separate organization had to have a CEO, had to have a finance director. They had to have all the services that those of us who choose to have our enterprise funds under the city or the county government have to pay for. So it is imperative that we have self-supporting enterprise funds, and they include those services that enterprise fund like Greenville Utilities, Cape Fear Public Utility Authorities are having to pay for separately. It's not a savings. They should once that happened, I was there 6 years, and there was 6 years of lots of customers hating Cape Fear Public Utility Authorities because our rates went up every year. And they didn't, and they were not small rate increases either. But we had, because we were forced to, we had to, cover our services. And the way that we are set up, we have some leeway in how, how we make these self-supporting. But the things that I saw presented today, they have to, we've heard we haven't raised rates since 2017, one or the other. And the cost of providing, services has gone up. So rates cannot stay the same if the cost of services goes up. The main focus, and some of the discussions today has been the administrative cost. Well, the administrative costs are those type things that our enterprise funds have to have. And I'm in the audit report, you can look at the general fund and you can see which departments have a utility administrative fee coming out of it. And it's, and some of the departments, it's a large percentage. If the organization was standing on its own, the 100% of that charge. We need to suggest that we do a good calculation, an independent, a calculation of what the service fees should be for each department. Right, as one of our council members mentioned, the less that the lower percentage of the utility fee, administrative fee that is paid by the enterprise fund has to be paid by taxes. It has to be paid.
So is it safe to say it's another tax on the citizens?
It's a cost of service to the utility fund. And the reason I went through my whole conversation about the independent ones, these are the type things they would have to pay for anyway. And they include such, like the governing board, community services, city manager, communications and marketing, downtown development, business and collection services, technology services, network administration, system administration, project management office, GIS, finance administration, accounting, purchasing, central services, community development, neighborhood redevelopment, human resources, human relations, engineering, and public works. So it's a large dollar amount, but it's covering a portion of the cost of each of those departments. That unless those departments go away, they've got to be paid, for somehow. But so that's kind of what the administrative fee is. Which department should be the ones paying it. That's what we should have. And it should, there should be kind of a formula that's developed that just determines what percentage it is. And it's my, suggestion, and I believe it's, hoping it will happen, that we have that done. Right now, any of these that we pull out of the enterprise funds, again, to be paid. So they had the bill has to come somewhere.
And that's what I was saying earlier when I was talking about doing like the cost of service analysis. I think we need to, have someone do that for us, do what we can internally, but just look at across the board citywide and, allocate appropriate. But again, I don't think we can act swift and just say, okay, we're going to start from scratch and just pull the plug, because as Cheryl just stated, the funding has to come from somewhere. So over the whole course of the city's history, they have relied heavily on the enterprise fund to support the general fund. But what that means is that the taxes were too low. So regardless of whether you call it a tax or fees, the way local governments work, we get our revenue from the government, from the government at the federal, state, and from the citizens of Rocky Mount.
Thank you for that, because there's a lot of those departments you name. I'm thinking, what do they have to do with utilities? But I guess what he said, that they're paying for other departments, so that our utility bills are paying for other departments in the city. So if we was able to cut some of the expenditures, expenses in those departments, then our utility rate may not have to go up as much. Is that correct?
If you cut the overall cost, the sharing, yeah, the amount that.
It's a shared expense.
Yeah,
It's a shared expense. Every department that she mentioned, relies on each other. You can't separate one department from another. They are enterprise fund because that's the legal structure in North Carolina, but we're all a part of the city. IT department, for example, if Bradley's department, if a computer goes out, I'm not saying you don't have qualified staff in there to fix that computer, but guess who they're gonna call? IT. If there is a water leak out there, not gonna call me, the city manager. Well, actually, I do receive several calls when there are water leaks, believe it or not. But we're gonna call the water department. We're all in this together. You can't separate an individual department out. It's a city, we're a full city, and it's collaboration across the board. Now, what I will commit to is, like Cheryl recommended, looking at that cost and service analysis to figure out how we can allocate the appropriate amount. But it's not something that's gonna happen overnight. We have to have incremental change.
What percentage of the utility funds are going to those departments? I heard like the downtown department and the different departments you was named. Cause I asked him, he paying his fair share. Are they paying, what percentage is being paid from utilities to fund those other
Yeah,
departments?
standing here at the podium, I can't tell you the percentage, but I just said it, say if you, look at the draft, audit report that you have, of which we expect to have the final draft tomorrow. But these numbers haven't changed. If you look at, in, the general fund, you will see a utility fee coming out of each of these departments. And so that can be calculated.
Thank you. Councilman Daughtry, I recognize you.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Warren, okay. I appreciate you. You can sit down. I appreciate what you said and surrounding the admin service fees. And I've been harping on this even before I was on city council and I appreciate the work that's going to be around that. As much as I would like for it to be addressed today, we don't have time to address it today, and I recognize that. I don't like that, but it's the reality that we're in, especially with your finance department. And it would be nice if we had a consistent percentage moving forward for each department and the impact it's going to have on our enterprise. And it sounds like that's what you're going to do. And that way each year we can determine it's not pie in the sky, which is what it seems to be. And so I applaud the work that you're committed and Mr. Manager, what you've committed to do. So I appreciate that. Earlier, I think it was, we're going to act today or act on Monday. I'm of the opinion that we need to act on Monday because we need to, first of all, we haven't had public comment. And I don't think there's much sway or we don't have many options, quite honestly. I mean, it's been Councilman Blackwell and Councilman Harris have certainly described that, and I agree with what they're saying on that. Our options are limited and the time is limited, but I think we could at least wait till Monday, and I would request, Mr. Manager, if you could, because there's some things that we can vote on Monday or today, but I would prefer it on Monday. That's my preference. And we need that probably very succinct with how we make a motion. I know the city clerk will probably appreciate that.
Yeah, our goal is to have a revised budget based on the feedback that we get today, and then you will have that available on Monday to vote on.
But also the motion to make sure that we're legally compliant and everything.
Yeah, I'll depend on the clerk and the city attorney for
Well,
that, but I'm just focusing on the line items. We'll have that ready for you.
Whoever does it, I just think we need to make sure we include, because some things can't be included until after we have the public hearings and so forth. The one thing I will ask the mayor and the council consensus today that we include on Monday is that each one of us receive and we receive a travel stipend
And I think that we need to, suspend that, until we get into a position to where it can be reinstated. And I would like consensus today, from this council and the mayor, where that can be included on Monday's, agenda. I'm obviously in favor of it, and, I think it's only right if we're asking the staff, if we're asking the public to step up, it's the least we can do.
This is not an interactive event. This is a business meeting, and this time I'd like to recognize Councilman TJ Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. I know the manager was asking today, and I don't know if this was one of the items that Councilman Daughtry was asking that we defer to Monday, but the consensus on core services, the manager was asking for us to give him direction today. Was that what you were requesting? Was that one of the items you were requesting to wait till Monday? No. I was saying get direction today because again, as I stated earlier, today is just the first step. This is not the end, it's the beginning. And so we will continue to be evaluating operations across citywide and looking for further reductions. I think what would help me be able to make some decisions about this, being able to associate, as one, as we heard, I get the enterprise funding percentages from each department, but then also the operating costs of each department. I see listed what is essentially deemed core as far as your perspective. Enterprise, obviously, that's where the money comes from, the mandated, and quality of life. These would essentially be the only two departments that you feel right now are quality of life. I'm looking for a direction for the board. This was just a conversation starter. I'll let that stuff for you all to decide what you want. The only thing that is mandated by the state is the building inspections. But again, in most cases across the state and the nation, things like parks and recreation, some of your quality of life departments aren't necessarily essential. And I will add that when you're looking at a quality of life situation across the board, from my experience in parks and recreation at the county and at the local government level from a municipality, they are not intended to make a profit. They are not even intended to have full cost recovery. Those are things that jurisdictions do for the quality of life. Now, we are in a situation unlike other jurisdictions of our size where we can't afford to do a lot of those things. And so unfortunately, we're going to have to make some difficult decisions. Staff will make some difficult recommendations, and what you all decide on, we will implement. But that's really the purpose, to kind of separate and get the conversation started, kind of guide you to where we feel we can make some potential cuts. But again, at the end of the day, it will be, council discretion. Gotcha.
Thank you, Councilman Knight.
One more thing there, Mark. And so, while staff will provide you with all the information that you requested in a timely manner, some of the information you can already have because it's in the previous year's audit. So the audit that we just done, even though it won't be exact, it will have the operation numbers for every division.
Councilman Knight. I'm sorry, I think Councilman Dolores Walker.
One of the main things too, Councilman Daughtry, I know when you say like travel, that's fine. I think, but since I've been on council, we got called about 2720 Red Lobster when it closed down, Highway down and when it was knocked down. So when you go into economic summits, you got to let them know what Rocky Mount has to offer. So I think if one of those opportunities come and somebody on council can go and bring them back, I know people say we got a lot of chicken spots, but those was locations that people were complaining about. I know Red Lobster, at one point I was running a lot of homeless people was taking it over. So you look when we go in the room, I think me and TJ go in the room with Raising Cane, and they agree to come. He not only agreed to knock it down where the city don't have to pay anything, but he was willing to knock the building down and put something there. Well, people was complaining about it. So it's not a blighted area anymore. Same thing with Slim Chicken. You look at out the Rodale group, which is in my ward, people were saying with the land, like you said you was gonna do this, gonna do that. We was able to bring investment back here. So I think if along the way, while we are in this situation, even if the mayor is somebody who's economic developments, Rocky Mount has something to offer, and we can go sell it and bring it back and bring tax dollars back. I think that's key, that we should be able to make that happen. So I think people sometimes think that council travels and it's like a party. It's not a party, it's work. But I do think of something that can be talked about, but also we have brought things back when we have traveled since I've been on council, every single time. So that's my stand on that.
Councilman Knight.
I just want to say, again, because the comment made about utilities. You know, one thing, you know, hopefully we all respect veterans. They've been on the front line, especially those who've been out on foreign ground involved to protect the lives of the American citizens so we can have freedom. And this whole utility piece, which started a little over 20 years ago with this council, and before this council, when they made a decision to enter into this agreement with the Kemper. But you have to know your history so you won't repeat your history. And I don't want the story to be said that the council raising utility rates on the backs of customers, citizens, because we're broke. We have seen the presentation. We have tried to hedge off any increase with rate stabilization, which we no longer have. Even with the rate increase, if we vote on it Monday, we still are compatible to surrounding cities, towns, and that we have to raise the rates because of what Duke is doing, not just to Rocky Mount, but to everybody. You have to understand that is if we go to the gas station when we leave here, you know, you got to pay if you want to drive. You know, you may go back next week and the price is going to go tremendously because of this war. You know, the business owner of the gas is not going to absorb the cost. He's going to pass it on to the customer. So what I'm saying is that's not true. That we just raising utility rates on our citizens because we need all this money. We need the money, but then we are facing, as Bradley said, that we have to pay for it ourselves. So I just want to be clear on that. You know, for some, it's just saying, you know, we've been very, and I know I've been very passionate about it and been fighting it. And I just don't want that to be spread across this city. And that is not true. That is not true. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment of executive privilege here. We've been debating this and hearing information from our staff for the past 3 hours. And I want to say to each member of staff, thank you for the work you put into this. This is no small task. Thank you, Mr. Manager, for coordinating all that. I would like some specific clarity from council as to whether or not we're going to extend this to Monday. However, I'd like to say one thing. I appreciate the reductions that we have, and I understand that it's not the menu that perhaps we would all like. I mean, I've seen nothing in the list of proposals to reduce the expenses that shouldn't be voted on today and implemented today. So I'd like to remind you that time is the one thing we don't have much of at the moment, and execution matters. It requires that our management team execute anything we say go forward on. And expense reduction is just that, expense reduction. We can't go up on the utilities until we've had a public hearing, which is scheduled on March 30th. I think that's right, March 30th. And so at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion that either we take this vote for the budget, the amended budget, or these expense reductions either today or Monday.
Before you give a motion.
No, sir, I'm not recognizing you. I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
I got a motion from Councilman Blackburn to take the vote for
Second.
Monday. I have a second for Monday. Is there a need for discussion on this?
Yes.
What's this? Yes, sir. Councilman Robinson, I recognize you.
Well, if we're gonna push it to Monday, I want to know, do we have input on some of these reductions? Because I was just sitting with the homeless shelter And I told them, based on what I was told, that they wouldn't get any money, and they have start setting up ways to close the homeless shelter. If they close that homeless shelter, there's gonna be a number of homeless people out on our streets. So when I see reductions, and I see some people still in here getting money, is there gonna be a way that we can have input in these reductions and suggestions?
Call for the question. Call for the question.
Okay, question's been called. All those in favor of pushing this budget amendment, or I guess a reduction or proposal to Monday, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Okay, motion carries. The issue will be resolved on Monday. With that, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Don't move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. We're now in closed session.
We're going to close session for economic development.
We're going to go to closed session for economic development.
In the back.
Yes, back.
I'll use one right there.
Click on it.
You joined So they basically.